There are three sounds. Most people hear them every day. They register them. Somewhere in the back of the mind, a small flag is raised, and then they continue. They continue making breakfast, or answering messages, or walking to the next room, and the flag is quietly lowered, and the sound is filed away under the category of ordinary, under the category of background, under the category of things that are simply part of life in a home. And I am here to tell you today that this exact dismissal is one of the most spiritually costly habits a household can carry. Because these three sounds are not background, they are not ordinary, they are not simply part of life. In the ancient wisdom tradition I have studied for over 32 years, sounds within the home were understood as messages, as signals from the energetic field of your living space, communicating the condition of your household's relationship with abundance, with blessing, with the flow of divine provision. My teacher, Rabbi Binyamin Alter, of blessed memory, used to say that a wise person learns to listen to their home the way a physician listens to the body. Not passively, not with the ears only, but with full attention and with the understanding that what you hear is telling you something real about what is happening beneath the surface. Today, I am going to share with you the three specific sounds that the ancient teachers identified as signals of blocked blessing, what they are, why they carry the spiritual weight they carry, and precisely what to do when you hear them. But you must stay with me through every one of the three, because the teaching on the third sound is the one that will surprise you most. It is the one that almost nobody expects, and it is the one that, in my experience, produces the most immediate shift when it is addressed. Before we go further, I want you to type the words, "I am listening," in the comments right now, not as a formality, as a declaration. In the Kabbalistic understanding of intention, what the ancient teachers called kavanah, the act of declaring your readiness to receive wisdom is itself the first act of opening. You are telling your own deeper mind, I am present, I am not dismissing, I am ready to hear what I have not heard before. Type it now, and then stay with me. Most people, when they think about the connection between their home and their finances, think about obvious things: the state of their bills, the size of their income, the debt they carry. And if they go a little deeper, perhaps the general feeling of their space, whether it feels cluttered or clear, heavy or light. But the ancient teachers went much further than feeling. They went into the specific sensory language of the home. They understood that a home communicates through all 5 channels: sight, smell, touch, taste, and sound, and that each channel carries its own class of spiritual information. The channel of sound in particular was held in especially high regard, because sound in the Hebrew mystical tradition is not merely vibration. It is the closest physical analog to the creative word, to the divine speech through which, the Torah tells us, the entire world was called into being. When God created the world, the mechanism was sound, word, utterance, and so sound in your living space is never neutral. It is always declaring something. The question is whether you are conscious of what it is declaring, or whether you have surrendered that awareness to habit and familiarity. I want to tell you about a woman I will call Devorah. Not her real name, but her story is real in every detail that matters. She came to me about 4 years ago, referred by a mutual friend who thought I might be able to help her understand something she could not explain. Devorah was a capable woman, educated, organized, genuinely hardworking. She had built a small consulting practice over several years, and it had grown to a point of real promise. And then, over about an 18-month period, it simply stalled. Not collapsed, stalled. Clients would come close to signing and then go quiet. Proposals would be accepted in principle and then stall in approval. Referrals that should have materialized somehow did not. She had spoken to business coaches. She had done everything they recommended. Nothing was structurally wrong with her business, and yet the ceiling was absolute. When I met with her, I did not ask her about her business model. I asked her to describe the sounds in her home. She looked at me for a moment, that particular look I have seen many times, the look of someone deciding whether I am serious. Then she described them. And within what she told me, I heard all three. Every one of them present in her home, unaddressed, normalized over years of living with them. Over the next 6 weeks, she addressed each one with the specific instructions I gave her. By the end of the second month, 2 of the stalled proposals had moved forward within the same week. A new client came through a referral that had gone cold 8 months earlier and suddenly re-engaged. The ceiling did not disappear in a day, but it moved. Genuinely, measurably moved. I share this not as a promise of what you will experience, but as a witness to what I have observed, in this case and in many others across many years of this work. Here is the first sound, the drip, the tap that releases water slowly and rhythmically into silence, the toilet that runs for long minutes after flushing, the pipe behind the wall that you can hear if the house is quiet enough. Most households contain at least one of these sounds, and most households have lived with it long enough that it has become invisible to conscious awareness. It is simply there, part of the texture of home, and this is precisely the problem. Because in the ancient mystical understanding, water is the element of blessing, of shefa, the Hebrew word for divine overflow, for the abundance that flows from above into the vessels of physical life. Water in the Kabbalistic framework is not just a material substance. It is the spiritual symbol of provision itself. The flow of water through a household represents the flow of abundance through a family. And a household that leaks, that drips, that runs, that seeps, is a household whose spiritual vessel is punctured. The blessing arrives, and it does not hold. It does not accumulate. It passes through. I have asked this question to more people than I can count over 30 years. Do you ever feel like the money comes in but cannot seem to stay? Like there is always something waiting to take it before it can become something? And the ones who say yes, almost invariably, when I visit their homes or ask about their homes specifically, there is water that is leaking somewhere. A drip they have tolerated, a running toilet they have adjusted the handle of 100 times, but never fully repaired. This is not coincidence. The sound of leaking water is the sound of blessing that cannot hold its form. Address every water leak in your home, every single one, not eventually, within the week. Within the week, because the teaching is not useful until it is applied, and delay is the habit the teaching is designed to break. The second sound, and this one will require you to listen more carefully because it is quieter than the first, and its quietness is part of why it is so rarely addressed. It is the sound of a door or a window that does not seal properly, the whistle of air through a gap in the frame, the rattle of glass in a window whose seal has gone soft, the low moan of a door that shifts when the temperature changes because the fit is no longer precise. In certain weather conditions, you may hear it clearly. In others, it is barely perceptible, just a faint breath of outside air finding its way in, through a place where the boundary of the home has become uncertain. In the ancient wisdom tradition, the boundaries of the home carry enormous spiritual significance. The mezuzah on the doorpost, the small scroll of sacred texts that observant Jewish families affix to their doorframes, is not merely a custom or a decoration. It is a declaration of boundary. It says, here, this threshold, this line between outside and inside, it is sacred, it is intentional, it is guarded. The spiritual teaching around the home's boundaries is that they must be clear, whole, and consciously maintained. A home whose boundaries are porous, whose walls and frames and seals allow the outside to infiltrate without intention, is a home that cannot hold its energetic field intact. And a home that cannot hold its energetic field intact is a home that struggles to hold what is brought into it, whether that is warmth or peace or the material expression of blessing that we call financial stability. The sound of air moving through an unsealed gap is the sound of the boundary of your home telling you, I am not whole here. I cannot fully protect what is inside. And every time you hear it and do not act on it, you are confirming that signal. You are agreeing with it. You are saying, in the language of energetic declaration, that the boundaries of your life are also porous, that what you build can be entered from the side, that what you accumulate cannot be fully protected. Seal the gaps. Find every place where outside air is coming in without intention and close it. This is practical work. It is also, simultaneously, profound spiritual work. The two are not in conflict. In the ancient tradition, they were never in conflict. The physical act performed with conscious intention is the integration of the material and the spiritual, and that integration is precisely what tikkun, what repair, is. Now I want you to sit with me for a moment before we move to the third sound, because what I am about to share is the one that requires the most honesty from you. It requires you to listen not just to your walls and your plumbing and your window frames, but to something that is simultaneously more intimate and more confrontational. And I say this with full warmth, with genuine care for every person receiving this teaching. But I also say it with the directness that this particular wisdom demands. Because you cannot receive the third teaching if you approach it defensively. You can only receive it if you approach it with the willingness of someone who genuinely wants to understand. The third sound. This is the one that Rabbi Binyamin Alter spoke of most rarely, not because it was least important, but because it was most sensitive, most personal, most likely to be met with resistance. He taught it only to those he felt were ready to hear it, without using it as a reason to feel shame, and I am going to trust that you are that person. I am going to teach it to you now. The third sound is the sound of complaint without direction, the sound of lack spoken aloud, repeatedly, without resolution. The words that describe what is not enough, what is not working, what is not fair, spoken in the kitchen, spoken before sleep, spoken in the first moments of the morning. Let me be specific, because vagueness is not useful here. I am talking about the sentence that begins with, "We never have enough." I am talking about, "I don't know how we're going to make this work." I am talking about the sighs, the muttered frustrations, the conversations between partners that circle the same scarcity without arriving anywhere new. I am talking about the habit, and it is a habit, learned and reinforced over years, of narrating lack inside the walls of the home. Now hear me carefully here, because I want to be precise about what I am and am not saying. I am not telling you that your financial difficulties are not real. They are real. I am not telling you that the stress you feel is invalid. It is valid. I am not telling you to pretend that things are fine when they are not, or to perform positivity you do not feel. That is not the teaching. The teaching is something more precise and more demanding than that. The teaching is about the difference between acknowledgement and declaration. You can acknowledge that something is difficult without declaring it as permanent. You can name a problem without making the name of the problem the most frequently spoken word in your household. The Kabbalistic masters were very clear on this point. The words spoken most often within the walls of a home become the energetic identity of that home. They become what the home is. And a home whose most frequent sound is the sound of lack, of not enough, of it will not work, of we cannot, is a home that has declared its own ceiling, not as metaphor, as spiritual law, as the direct consequence of the principle that speech is creative, that what is spoken with frequency and feeling inside a sacred space takes on the weight of intention, whether the speaker intended it as such or not. This is not about being positive. This is about being precise. It is about understanding that your voice inside your home is not neutral. It is the most powerful sound your home will ever contain. And if the most powerful sound your home contains is the sound of narrated scarcity, then the work of opening the flow of blessing must begin there. Not exclusively. The drip still needs to be fixed. The gap in the window frame still needs to be sealed. But the third sound, the sound of the voice of the household speaking lack as identity, is the one that, when it changes, produces the most sustained transformation. Because it does not change the physical environment only. It changes the people living within it. It changes what they expect, what they notice, what they reach for, what they believe is available to them. And those changes, in expectation, in attention, in belief, are the changes that alter the material outcomes of a life. I am not asking you to stop talking about your finances. I am asking you to change how you talk about them when you are inside your home. I am asking you to notice, perhaps for the first time with real consciousness, how often lack is the subject of conversation in your kitchen, in your bedroom, in the first and last moments of your day. And I am asking you to introduce, not as a performance, not as an affirmation you do not believe, but as a genuine act of spiritual precision, the language of what is arriving, what is possible, what has been provided before and can be provided again. The ancient prayer tradition is full of this language, not because the people who wrote those prayers did not know hardship, but because they understood that the voice lifted in acknowledgement of what is flowing, even in the middle of what is difficult, is a voice that participates in the opening of the gate rather than the closing of it. Now I want to give you a specific practice that ties all three of these sounds together. A single act of intention that, when performed with full consciousness, creates a unified declaration for your household. Once you have addressed the drip, once you have sealed the gap, once you have begun the practice of changing the dominant voice of your home, take one evening, a quiet evening, and walk through every room of your home slowly. Not to clean, not to rearrange, simply to listen. Walk into each room and stand in silence for 60 seconds and truly hear what that room is saying to you. What sound is present? What does it tell you? And as you stand in each room, speak aloud, quietly, with full intention, these words or words like them. This room is a vessel of blessing. This space is whole. This home receives. You do not need to perform emotion you do not feel. You need only mean it, to bring the full weight of your conscious intention to the words, because intention in the ancient teaching is the mechanism. It is the difference between a word that is merely uttered and a word that carries the creative force the ancient teachers believed words to contain. I have built a complete resource, a full architecture of this teaching that extends across every room, every threshold, every energetic dimension of the home as a spiritual vessel. And it is available to you in the description below this video. If today's teaching reached something in you, if something I said opened a question you want to go deeper into, everything you need to continue this work is there. I put it together specifically for people who hear a teaching like this and feel the truth of it, but want the full structure, not just the pieces. Now, what is the sound in your home right now that you have been ignoring? Tell me in the comments. Not as confession, as the beginning of action. Name the sound and tell me what you are going to do about it within the next 7 days. I want to know. I respond personally to comments, and your declaration here is not wasted. It is witnessed. And a declaration that is witnessed carries more weight than one that exists only inside your own mind. If this channel has been bringing you wisdom that shifts something real in you, subscribe now so that you do not miss what comes next. I release teachings regularly, and each one goes deeper than the last. The community that is gathered here is one of the most genuinely seeking communities I have encountered in many years of teaching, and I am grateful for every person in it. And if these 3 sounds and what they mean and what to do about them landed somewhere important for you, press the like button. Do it because someone else is out there right now, hearing the drip in their kitchen and feeling the weight of a financial ceiling they cannot explain. And your simple press of that button is what puts this teaching in front of them. Be the reason they find it. May your home become a space of holy sound. May the words spoken within your walls be words of arrival, of overflow, of the abundance that belongs to a household that has learned to listen and to act. May the leaking cease, the boundaries hold, and the voice of lack be replaced, gently, honestly, with full intention, by the voice of what is possible. You were given a home so that you would have a vessel. Make your vessel whole. Shalom.